Um, Good morning, good afternoon, depending, of course, from where you're hearing my voice from. This is the Biafra Golden Child, and I'm really once again excited at an opportunity to interact with us. Yes. Um, you guys must have, seen my audio on the former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, who umpired, the vicious attack against the Biafrans between 1967 and 1970. You must have seen my audio where, I narrated how Gowon came out all over the mass media and he was vehemently, vociferously, and sorrowfully shedding tears and saying it was never his choice. It wasn't done out of hatred. He didn't want to kill any Biafrans. He didn't want the war to, have commenced. And they said he prayed. He prayed before he takes every other decision he takes in his life or he makes in his life. And that he had prayed before that uh, episode. He had prayed and he had asked God to, you know, direct him accordingly. So he came out crying and shedding, weeping profusely. But of course, like I said, go on. Yes, we feel for you. We empathize with you. Yes, we sympathize with you. But unfortunately, because of the dead souls of the faithfully departed Biafrans, children, elderly, the sick, you know, and the weak who died, over 4.5 million of them, I find it difficult to accept your apologies. I find it difficult to forgive you. Yes, it cannot be written just swept under the carpet. No way. Yeah, the truth must be told. Life was lost. Avoidable carnage. Avoidable carnage was, would have been avoided, but it was unleashed on peace-loving, quiet people who were forced, most of the time defenseless people who were forced to defend themselves when the chips were all done. When it was obvious if they didn't do that, they all could have, it could have been history. The whole of the Southeast, the whole of Biafra could have been wiped out from the geography of Nigeria. So go on, sorry, but no thanks. You know, I can't forgive you. I was a victim of that war, like I narrated, because I lost my mommy during that war. And of course, I was forced to be born, without, you know, having access to my mother because of, a war, a, a senseless war that was more or less a genocide against Ndio. Yeah, I thought that was where it would end. I thought it would end there. But wow, I didn't know, something hotter, something more daring was in the offing. Yes, because, a coalition of Igbo women, under the Igbo Women Assembly, IWA. If you, this IWA reminds me of the IWA, International Wrestling Association, when we were kids, the IWA. When it comes out, they say this is the IWA, the International Wrestling Association, featuring the champions, male mascaras, Bulldog Brower, the Mighty Eagle, Tex McKenzie, you know, and a whole lot of other people, That's what the IWA reminds me of. Well, ladies and gentlemen, get up. We're not talking about wrestling here. We're talking more about women who came all out and they said, no, go on, you can't be saying this crap to us. You can't send this trash to us. We're not going to accept this, Mr. Gowon. Yes, with all due respect, say, former head of state, Yakubu Gowon, we have heard you, but no way. You aren't getting away with this. You couldn't have caused the death of our children, our mothers, our uncles, our fathers, and you come and tell us you're really sorry about it. You're really sorry about it. And I'm sorry. Yes, it was a hard decision. No, go on. No. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's audio is about a coalition of Igbo women under the Igbo Women Assembly, IWA. In short, you know, they have urged former head of state General Yakubu Gowon, retired, to tell the truth about the Aburi Accord and the real cause of the Nigerian Civil War. In case you didn't hear me well, I'm saying right here that the coalition of Igbo women under the Igbo Women Assembly, IWA, has urged former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, retired, to tell the truth and only truth about the Aburi Accord and the real cause of the Nigerian Civil War. The group said telling the truth is essential for national healing and genuine reconciliation. The Aburi Accord was a peace agreement reached in January 1967 between representatives of the federal military government of Nigeria, led by General Yakubu Gowon, and Eastern region leaders, led by the late Lieutenant Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu in Aburi, Ghana. The meeting aimed to avert civil war by agreeing uh, on a decentralized federal structure. However, Nigerian government was said to have later reneged on the terms of the agreement, a move widely seen as the immediate trigger of the Biafran War. The women also maintained that there is nothing wrong with honoring the victims of the war, pushing back against misconceptions surrounding the annual Biafra Day commemoration. Speaking in Umuahia, after the May 30th sit-at-home declared by Biafra agitators to honor those who died during the conflict, the women said remembering fallen heroes is a global tradition that should not be criminalized. National President of IWA, Akachukwu, said Biafra Remembrance Day has become an integral part of Igbo history and must not be erased or repressed. She said those who died in that war were not goats. They were our beloved husbands, brothers, and sons. Remembering them is not rebellion. It is a duty. Maybe we want to hear that again. Yes. Yes. National President of IWA, Akachukwu, said Biafra Remembrance Day has become an integral part of Igbo history and must not be erased or repressed. She said those who died in that war were not goats. They were our beloved husbands, brothers, and sons. Remembering them is not rebellion, it is a duty. We thank everyone in the Southeast and beyond who joined in honoring them. It's a mirage to think this memory can be wiped out. Biafra Day is not just about IPOB, it is about our collective memory and history, which even the unborn must be told. She called on federal government to recognize Biafra Day as an important national memorial, rather than trying to suppress it or clamp down on those who observe it. Chimezie renewed calls for the unconditional release of IPOB leader Mazen Nnamdi Kanu, insisting that his continued detention is a sore point in the unresolved injustice against Igbo. She emphasized that IPOB is wrongly blamed for insecurity in the Southeast. According to her, it is not the group, but criminal elements sponsored by Igbo enemies that are responsible for the violence destabilizing the region. Someone who claimed to have been tasked with securing the Southeast should be held accountable for the rise in insecurity. What we see now is a continued assault, like an extended civil war. It is aimed at keeping our region in turmoil, she said. She questioned why the Nigerian government has not officially apologized for the misinformation and injustice that led to the war, particularly the false label of the 1966 coup as an Igbo coup, quote and unquote. Chimezie referenced a recent admission by former military ruler General Ibrahim Babangida, who said the coup had been mischaracterized. She went on to say, why is it so hard to say we are sorry? That lie helped set off a tragic war. If Nigeria could honor June 12 and Chief MK Abiola, why can't it? Why can't it honor the millions who died in the Biafran War? She noted. The IWA president urged General Gowon, who led Nigeria during the Civil War, to publicly speak the truth about the Aburi Accord. a peace agreement reached in Ghana before the outbreak of hostilities in 1967. She said, no amount of prayer can bring true healing without confession and apology. Gowon must tell the world the truth about Aburi and Biafra. You should not go to the grave with it. 50 years later, the blood of our children, women, and men still cries out. Why does Nigeria shy away from addressing the war? Even unborn generations will be aware of it. We appeal to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to consider releasing Nnamdi Kanu as a mark of goodwill and the strategic step towards peace in the southeast. His release will not increase tension, it will bring calm, she said. Peace cannot be forced with bullets, but achieved with dialogue and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Mrs. Chimezie a round of applause. I think she deserves it all. She said it all. This is a woman who has come out openly, clearly, and audaciously, to call a spade a spade. I told you in Biafra Superstars Media, we'll continue to highlight, news items that border on Biafra, that border on the Southeast, that border on our people, our collective will to survive as a people, even though we have been marginalized, even though we have been subjected to very, very painful, inhuman treatments, back to back, since this, especially since the January 1966 coup. So when women like this speak, women like this speak, when people like this speak, it gladdens my heart because it means our efforts, at Biafra Superstars Media is not in vain. We said we'll continue to catalog all the events, all the processes, all the issues concerning, Biafran people and people of Biafra, extraction. And so we're very, very happy indeed, to find that a coalition of Igbo women under the Igbo Women's Assembly, IWA, has urged former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, retired, to tell the truth about the Aburi Accord and the real cause of the Nigerian Civil War. And of course, the group has said they have insisted that telling the truth is essential for national, healing and genuine reconciliations. Yes. Because of course, when you remember that, the Aburi Accord was supposed to be a peace agreement, reached in January 1967 between representatives of the federal military government of Nigeria, then led by General Gowon, and of course, Eastern region leaders led by the late Lieutenant Colonel Odumegwu Ojukwu in Aburi, Ghana. Of course, it was widely agreed and duly, uh, mutually agreed that there will be ceasefire, every place shall remain as it is, status quo shall remain, and of course there will be, a better discussion and a decentralized socialization of power, and everything government to make accommodation to give the East, of course, a fair landing too, like every other region. But of course, when General Yakubu Gowon came back to Nigeria, he reneged on that promise, and of course, it became, the reason for the war. It became, a very, very sad harbinger to the civil war that culminated in, the genocide against the Southeast, against Ndibo, taking over 4.5 million lives, including children, including the sick and uh, disabled, including women, including, our people, Ndibo. So the women have come out and said this is really terrible. So the IWA, National President of IWA, Nneka Chimezie, said Biafra Remembrance Day has become an integral part of Igbo history and must not be erased or repressed. You can all recall what happened on the 30th of May 2024 when, we insisted, Biafra probably insisted that that day must be a no movement day. It must be a public holiday in all Biafra land. Because of course we felt that the blood of our martyrs, our fallen heroes, people who died in a senseless war, people who were chased out of, their homes, who were chased out of their comfort zones and exposed to all manners of wickedness, gun battles, shootings, bombings, bombardments from the air and land and sea. I mean, it calls for, genuine sober reflections. We insist, that the 30th May, sit at home, you know, declared by the Biafra agitators, to honor those who died during the conflict, you know, uh, is should be maintained. I mean, it's a global tradition that should not be criminalized. And nobody who comes among is dead, or his heroine or martyrs is ever criminalized because, of course, it happens globally. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy that this woman took pains. This organization has articulated their views, and of course, I hope the message is sounding clear and direct, not only to retired General Yakubu Gowon alone, even to the Emilokon, the current incumbent in power. They must realize that Biafra is not a dead organization. They must realize that Biafra is not a mirage. They must realize that Biafra has come to stay. Any attempt to sweep it under the carpet is a waste, is a futile job, is an engagement in futility. Biafra has come to stay and is going to grow. Like, it's going to metamorphose into something, powerful, sovereign, independent, and, it's just a matter of time. So the earlier the Nigerian government began to give Biafra the latitude to grow, to expand, and to achieve its independent and sovereign agenda, the better it will be for every one of us. So I'm really so excited, that the national president of IWA, Nneka Chimezie, has said that yes, there are go on. We see you crying on television, on the various mass medias, but tears is not enough. Tears is not enough. With all due respect, sir. Tears cannot bring back our loved ones. It cannot bring back our children. It cannot bring back our dead husbands. It cannot bring back our mothers and grandmothers. Tears cannot rebuild our destroyed communities. Tears cannot, bring back the psychic, destruction of life and property, the genocide against our people. Unfortunately, General Yakubu Gowon retired. Sorry, sorry, your tears are not enough. Of course, one other thing that really intrigued me is where she said, where she questioned why the Nigerian government has not officially apologized, for the misinformation and injustice that led to the war, particularly the false label of the 1966 coup, as an Igbo coup. Of course, she referenced, a recent admission by former military ruler, General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, who said the coup had been mischaracterized. Yes, in fact, General Ibrahim Babangida was very clear and loud when he said that coup was never an Igbo coup. Major Kaduna Nzogo, who was the one who, championed that coup, even though he was an Igbo man, he was more Hausa in language, he was more Hausa in dressing, he was more Hausa in thinking, he was more Hausa in everything, Hausa than Igbo. In fact, he never spoke Igbo. In fact, he never even ever visited Igbo land. That man, Kaduna, uh, Major General Kaduna Chukwumanzogu, was never a full-fledged Igbo man, but he was more Aboki than a Yamari. And of course, he said the beneficiary of that coup would have been the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, blessed memory, who is from the southwest. And so he wondered why that coup was, mischaracterized as an Igbo coup. But of course, we know why it was done. It was a case of give a dog a bad name because you want to kill the dog. Give a dog a bad name because you want to maim it. That is why, it was touted, characterized, mischaracterized deliberately as an Igbo coup. So, ladies and gentlemen, the women have said it all, and I concur with them. I concur totally with them. And I agree with her that no amount of prayer can bring true healing without confession and apology. Gowon must tell the whole world the truth about Aburi and Biafra. He should not go to the grave with it. Yeah, there's an old man, now in his 80s. 80s, and I think he should be bold enough. I mean, why is he shy about it? Why is he neglecting to say the truth? At 80, what will you suffer? At 80, what will you lack? Tell 80 plus. Tell us what really happened. Why did you, tell us the truth about the Aburi Accord and Biafra. Tell us why, you refused to do the right thing at the right time when you could have saved millions of lives. Yes, yes. I agree with that totally. I concur again, ladies and gentlemen, that 56 years later, yeah, the blood of our children, women and men still cries out. Why does Nigeria shy away from addressing the war? Even unborn generations will be aware of it. We appeal to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, consider releasing Nnamdi Kanu as a mark of goodwill and a strategic help towards peace in the southeast. Ladies and gentlemen, the women have spoken. I brought it up here so that we can all, be fully aware of what is happening in Biafra. We should eulogize these women. I remember that in history, women have always played a fundamental role. If you remember the Aba women's riots, way back, even before Nigeria's, independence. Yes, the Aba women came out and they rioted because of what they considered the hardships, the difficulties, and the total clueless governance at that point in time about legislations that they thought were particularly lopsided and targeted at, civilians and people who didn't deserve it. So women have played fundamental roles in the history of this country, and these brave women have equally taken it upon themselves, to ally with Biafra, recognize the Southeast, define the conceptions of Biafra, and let the whole world know that they are proud. They are proud to be part and parcel of Biafra. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for, the women who have taken it upon themselves bravely, without fear of favor, without minding whose ox is God. They have come out to tell the truth. I salute the coalition of Igbo women under the Igbo Women Assembly, IWA, who has urged former head of state, General Yakubu Gowon, retired, to tell the truth about the Aburi Accord and the real cause of the Nigerian Civil War. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I want to punctuate it here. I think the message is clear enough. I want you guys to, hear this and praise these women. And of course, we want more people to come out. We said all hands must be on deck. Biafra must succeed. The redeclared ancestor of Biafra must grow, yes, to its independent sovereign level. God bless you all. Thank you until I come your way again. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Biafra, Biafra. Yeah, Superstar Media. Tell me about Biafra. We going back to the motherland. Tell me about Biafra. I wanna know. Tell me about Biafra. We going back to the motherland. Tell me about Biafra, Biafra. I wanna know. We going back to the land. We going back to the motherland. Biafra, Biafra. Tell me about Biafra. We going back to the land. Tell me about Biafra. We going back to the motherland. Tell me about Biafra, Biafra. Tell me about Biafra. We going back to the land.